Very good afternoon, friends. Hope everybody is enjoying the session since morning. And I personally have, a lot of passion and love talking in women in tech sessions. It's great to have, huge women participating in the session. And thank you for joining the session today. For the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'll be giving you a brief introduction to build a serverless data lake using AWS services and a short demo towards the end where you can understand how it works in a real world. Um, just feel free to post your questions in the Q&A sessions as and when you have it, and we'll try to address all of them towards the end of the session. Hope, okay. So way back in 2000, late 90s and early 2000, all the technologies, the database technology, the processors, the data, bandwidth, cloud, and the self-service analytics tools, everything underwent a very huge revolution. So database technologies, they introduced the concept of in-memory, NoSQL database, and in processors, we had multi-core processors, high-frequency processors, and all the social media, they started picking up LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and the network bandwidth, the Wi-Fi got introduced. We had 3Gs and 4Gs coming up. AWS emerged, and a lot of other cloud technologies emerged. And we also had a lot of self-service analytics tools coming into the market. So all of these emerge for different reasons. However, these forces resulted in the ability to capture a lot of data, store them, ingest them into a cloud system, and and led to the evolution of a growth of big data. So all of these huge revolution, right, resulted in what we call big data now. And now we have systems that could handle petabytes and exabytes of data that could drive a lot of results and derive a lot of meanings and insights. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll be talking about what is a data lake, what is the characteristics of data lake, how to build a data lake on AWS, and a sample architecture to support a data lake. And to introduce myself, my name is Sridevi. I am part of AWS User Group Chennai. I'm a senior cloud architect working for Agilitium. So as part of my work, I design and architect solutions handling petabyte scale, data lake, and the related solutions. Okay, let's move on to the actual topic itself. So why do we need data lake? So what is the purpose of having a data lake in your organization? So the growth of data is really, really huge nowadays, and it grows, 10x is actually before 3-4 years. Now it grows even more than that. So it grows 10x every 5 years, and the data itself resides for more than 15-20 years for our analytics purpose. So when you design your system, ensure you have the scale considered, you have the infrastructure considered for this outburst of data. Okay, so that is the reason we have to think a lot before you design your data lake. Identify the infrastructure that can grow indefinitely, and use your data sources promptly, because your data should be right. You should have the right data. You should have the data that is going to create a lot of value for yourself than storing all data. Along with that, we also have different user groups that would need access to the data. Not all users will need access to all data. So there will be a group of business users who will need the consolidated or aggregated output. There will be data scientists looking for the raw data. There will be analysts, and there will be consuming applications. And all of these different type of users will need data in different format. And we should ensure the data lake supports giving data in different formats, which is really scalable, flexible, and secure. So there should be security as well to the data lake, so that not everybody can access everybody else's data as well. So what are the typical characteristics of big data? I hope most of you would have known, but just for the benefit of everybody. So big data is typically characterized by 5 V's. So the first V is volume. So your data should have enough volume for processing in your big data system, at least in petabytes, or at least 100 plus GBs of data. So there should be a huge volume of data. And then there should be a velocity to the data. So your data should grow. There should be consistent accumulation of data to your system. You should see data coming in every day. Static data will not help coming out with meaningful insights. So you should have velocity. And the third V is variety. So you should have data from different sources, not having data from one business unit, rather collect data from different sources, use social data, use data from APIs, third parties. So use all the data into mix so that you get the right insights and right inferences from your data itself. And then the fourth V is the veracity. Veracity is the accuracy of the data. So you should have accurate data. Inaccurate data is not going to help anyways. It is just a waste of storage cost. So just ensure whatever data you're collecting is right data. And the last and important V is the value. So whatever data you store, it should have a value. A data without value is not going to help us anyways. So ensure the data you're collecting is of some value to your insights and your technical decisions. And from the data type itself, there are three different types of data that your data lake should support. So the first is the structured data. So structured data are data that is organized into proper rows and columns, normalized with constraints. So you should have a proper structured data, which can and the second type of data is unstructured data. So unstructured data doesn't have any normal structure. Examples could be your PDF files, videos, any raw files, text files, which doesn't have proper structure. And in between these two, you have a semi-structured data as well. So semi-structured data examples could be XMLs and JSONs, which have some part of it defined, but not the entire file is defined. Because if you see NoSQL databases, you can add any number of columns after you have defined the primary key columns, right? So you have to just give your primary key columns, but after that, there is no proper definition that you have to adhere to. So all of these come under semi-structured data. So big data should have all 5 V's and it can support all of these data types. So what is exactly a data lake? So what do we call it a data lake, right? So before I get into this concept, I'll just give an example, okay? For people who have toddlers at home or who had toddlers at home, you have toys spread all over the place in your halls and rooms, right? But suddenly if some guest comes, right, what you do is put all your toys into a box and just put it somewhere. So that is a data lake, okay? There is no organized structure. You just put whatever you have into a box and then put it somewhere so that it is safe and you can pull it whenever required, and you can pull the right toy when required. So that is, in very simple terms, a database, a data lake, right? So data lake is a centralized repository that can store all your data at any scale. It can be a structured data or unstructured data or even semi-structured data, and it can scale it. It can scale indefinitely. So that is a definition of data lake, and it should be the single source of truth. So you should not be keeping the same data in multiple places in different formats. So your raw data or whatever data you're capturing from other systems should always be in one place, and it should be the single source of truth, and it should handle any type of data. There should be no restriction on no structured data versus semi-structured or unstructured. Try to gather as much as data as possible, adhering to your big data characteristics. Okay, gather useful data. And then you should generally data lake is schema and read. So I hope everybody knows the difference between schema and write and schema and read, but just for the benefit of people who are new, schema and write is more of your RDBMS databases, where you define the schema even before you put the data into your database. So you should have primary key, you should have the constraints. So all of these is schema and write. But schema and read is something where you'll not define any schema when you put the data into the system. Rather, when you read the data from the system, you will apply some schema. I'll say, okay, this is how I want to pull the data. So that is schema and read. And there are benefits of both schema and read and write, but data lake should be schema and read to allow fast ingestion and consumption of data. And then your data lake should be very strong in security. So it should be properly secured, because there could be PII information, there could be financial information. So ensure all security measures are available for your data lake. And it should be low cost, because we are talking about petabytes and exabytes of data storage. It should be low cost storage. Okay, so data lake is a centralized repository where you can store any type of data at any scale. Okay, so just a word of caution here. So there is a concept called data swamp or data pond versus data lake. So what is data swamp? Data swamp is a data warehouse or a data pond where data will grow as big as data lake, but it is not used. The reason is there is no proper governance on the data, there is no security, and there is no self-service options. So people are not using it because it is not usable, it is not proper, it is not governed, so data is not accurate. So ensure when you design your data lake, the data lake doesn't become a data swamp. So when your data lake becomes a swamp, it is just a storage, right? You're just going to pay for a storage and nobody is going to use it. And there are a lot of scenarios where your data lake would become data swamp if there is no proper governance in place. Hope I'm with all of you. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. So this is the core slide. This slide gives a picture of all AWS services related to your data lake and your big data. Okay, so any data lake system should have 4 phases or 4 modules. Okay, the first phase is your data ingestion part or your data collection part. So this is where you get data from different sources. So I've given 5 different services here. I'll talk about them for data ingestion, but there are also other ways of ingesting your data into the system. It can be through your SFTP pull, or customers they themselves push data into S3, or it can be API calls, etc. And the second layer is your storage. Storage on AWS, we always use S3 for the raw data storage. So S3 is your storage layer for your data lake. And then the third layer is transformation. So after you get your data, you have to cleanse your data, you have to transform your data based on your business needs, and put it back to S3 or any other system that is used for the consumption purposes. And the fourth step is end user computing, visualization, reporting, etc. Okay, so let me begin with the data ingestion services. AWS Snowball is a petabyte scale data transfer device. Okay, it is like a suitcase. Okay, so which will be shipped to your data center, and you can load the data into your Snowball device, and it will be transferred physically back to AWS data center, and they'll be loading the data into our cloud. So like AWS Snowball, there are also other devices called Snowcone and Snowmobile, but all of them are for different size of data. Snowball handles 50 to 80 petabytes, and Snowcone 8 petabytes, and Snowmobile is a big truck that can handle exabytes of data. Okay, so it's a physical device to transfer data. Okay, it's physically to transfer, one-time transfer of data from your on-prem to cloud. And then Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose is for collecting your streaming data. So I'll be talking more about Kinesis Data Firehose in the demo, but this is more for streaming data, ingestion of your streaming data. So streaming data could be, your gaming data, it could be your IoT data, video data, etc. Okay, so all of these data could be ingested into the cloud using Kinesis Data Firehose. The third service is your AWS Direct Connect. So Direct Connect is a physical network connectivity between your data center and cloud. Okay, AWS and data center. This is more for increasing your throughput and network bandwidth. Okay, and the most important service in ingestion is AWS Database Migration Service. This has a set of supported source and target database. So this is used to move your data from on-prem to cloud. This can on-prem to cloud or even cloud to cloud. So you can move from on-prem Oracle to cloud S3 or to cloud RDS or to cloud Redshift. So however, there are multiple ways you can move your data from cloud to from on-prem to cloud. So database migration service is one of the key service if you want to move data from on-prem to cloud. And storage gateway is a hybrid cloud storage system which will give you on-premise system to access your files as if it is an on-prem. Okay, so it is more for file access. And then the next is the storage. As I said, S3 is your storage. So all your ingestion will pull your data, will pull the data from external sources, and it will be stored in S3. So that is your stage 2. And then the next stage is the transformation. So AWS provides 2 transformation services, AWS EMR and Glue. Glue is a serverless ETL device, okay, ETL service. So Glue can transform your data based on your business needs. It can convert your data from any format, from a CSV to JSON, CSV to Parquet, or CSV to JSON. There are multiple transformations available, and you can also write your custom Spark jobs in Glue. And EMR is not serverless. It is also used for ETL transformation. This is based on MapReduce algorithm, or you can also use Spark. And it has a lot of libraries supported on EMR. So if your job needs a lot of third-party support, then we go with EMR. But if it is, a little bit straightforward, and if it is plain PySpark with a bit of third-party libraries, we can use Glue. Glue is fully managed serverless service, so it is easy to use, and there are a lot of features added now to Glue. I'll be going through that Glue as well today as part of the demo. So we are done with data ingestion, storage, and transformation. There are few other services in that box that I'll be talking about in the analytics and servicing. So there are databases where you will want to push the data after transformation, right? So Amazon Redshift is your data warehousing service provided by AWS. So if you want your output into a data warehouse, pushed into a data warehouse, you can push your data into Amazon Redshift. Amazon DynamoDB is your NoSQL service provided by AWS. So if your output is required in NoSQL data format, then you can use Amazon DynamoDB. And Neptune is your graph database, and RDS is your relational database. And you can also use Aurora as your relational database if you are, or if you want your output in a relational database. Okay. And then you have a couple of other services in that box. So Athena, I'll be showing it in the demo, but a quick introduction to that. So Athena is a serverless interactive query engine. Okay, so using Athena, you'll be able to query your S3 files using standard SQL. So Glue will be used to crawl your S3 file, but you can use Athena to just run query and write a normal SQL. Sorry, hello? Was there a question? Okay, I'll move on. And your Amazon QuickSight. Your QuickSight is your visualization tool. So if you want to connect your Redshift or S3, and if you want to see your data, in a graph and chart format, you can use QuickSight. So Athena is your querying engine. If you want to read your data on S3 using standard SQL, you can use Athena. And if you want to visualize the data using charts and graphs, you can use QuickSight. And Kinesis, there are multiple services within Kinesis, and all of these are primarily used for streaming data. And Elasticsearch service is normal Elasticsearch service to search your data. Okay, so all of these services are really vast, and they may need one day session each. So I'm just giving you a very high level overview. But if you want to deep dive into any of these services, just let me know on LinkedIn, and maybe I'll be able to help you with the details. Okay. So apart from this, there are a few common layers. So the important one is, how do you secure your data lake? How do you manage and secure your data lake? So AWS KMS is key management service, so which is used to secure a data at rest. Okay, you can encrypt your data using keys, and you can secure it. And IAM is for users and roles. You can manage, you can create user role policies attached to all of these services, and ensure that there is only proper access. And then CloudTrail is your auditing service, and now CloudWatch is for log analysis. Okay. And on the top, you have catalog and search services. So these services are used for searching your S3. So Glue is, the primary service which can help crawl the data, and Athena can query on top of it. I'll show a demo of Glue crawler. Elasticsearch service is for searching your S3 data, and DynamoDB is for NoSQL data. If you have NoSQL data, push it into DynamoDB and you'll be able to search the data. And on the other side, access and user interfaces. This is more for exposing your data for other users using API. Okay, so if you want to expose your data for consumption using API, you can use all of these services. But generally, our use cases would be to read the data directly from the databases or from S3. So that is a typical use case for our data lakes and data warehouses. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to post it on the Q&A box, because I know this is too much of information at a stretch, but if you want me to explain some of the services in detail, just post it here. I'll try to take it up towards the end of the session. Thank you. Okay, so for the demo today, I'll be using a very simple architecture. Okay, this is no complex. very basic architecture using serverless technology. So this is completely serverless, and that is the reason I've selected these services, and I'll be showing a demo with these services. Okay. So the first part on the Kinesis data generator. So this is a tool provided by AWS themselves to generate a sample data, mock data. So ideally in real world, you'll be getting streaming data from a gaming device or IoT sensors, or you can Kinesis streams. So there are multiple sources, but for the demo, I'll be using a mock data. Okay, so which will be using Kinesis data generator. So that is outside your main cloud. Okay, so this is a separate mock service. Okay, from the main solutioning perspective, your Amazon Kinesis Firehose will be consuming the streaming data. So you just push the streaming data, and streaming data is a continuous data which comes, without any manual intervention, just streams. Okay, so you'll be your Kinesis Firehose will be reading the streaming data, and it will be persisting it into S3 in the raw format. So whatever data I'm going to send it from Kinesis data generator, that will be getting into Amazon S3 in the raw data folder. And from there, the first transformation that I'm going to do is convert the raw data into Parquet format. Okay, so Parquet format is a columnar compressed format. I'll again be talking about this as well in the next couple of slides. And then the second step of transformation is applying some business logic on your data. So you, for example, I've applied a few business logic group. I partitioned the data, repartitioned the data using Spark Job. So you can actually do some aggregation, or you can remove columns. Whatever you want to do with your business logic will be your second step. You can write your own custom Spark Job, and you can transform the data and write it to the final transform data bucket. And from there, for the demo today, I'll be using Athena to query the data, but you'll be able to write the transform data to any database of your choice, or you can expose the data for any downstream application consumption. Okay. Okay. Okay, so first service that we are going to use in the demo is S3. So S3 can be used to store indefinite amount of data. Okay, so you can store any limit of data. And there are different buckets within S3. There are different standards. Okay, so S3 standard, infrequent access, one zone IA, and Glacier. So based on your data access pattern, you can create your S3 bucket under any of these categories. So Glacier is for archival. So if you're not going to use the data for your regular querying pattern, but you still want to retain it for some auditing purpose, please push your data to Glacier and save some cost on it. Okay, so that is the purpose of Glacier. It's for archival. So the other three types are for your standard access. Okay, so based on your business needs and based on your reliability, you can choose one of these type. And S3 has 11 nines of durability, and there is a costing there. Okay, it is 0.023 GB per month for S3 and 0.004 for Glacier storage cost. Okay, so when you design your data lake, there are two things that you have to be careful. One is designing your data format itself. Okay, your source can be in CSV format or JSON format or TSV format, but when you store it in S3, ensure the data is compressed. Okay, because S3 storage cost is based on the size of the data you're going to store. So ensure it is compressed so that your storage costs are reduced. And you also use a columnar compressed or row compressed solutions. Okay, so columnar compressed are Parquet and ORC. So it compresses your data based on your column. Okay, and Parquet and Avro has its own business case and use cases. So based on your use cases, you have to define the right format. So Parquet is more for analytics workload, and Avro is for full data scan. If your use case needs full data scan very often, then go for Avro. But if you want a lot of read heavy workloads, then you have to use Parquet. So before even you store your data, write your ETL job, ensure the formats are correctly chosen. Okay, you ensure you have the right format of data. This is just a comparison to understand how much cost you would be saving. Okay, so if you have a normal text file logs, then for a 1 TB of data, you'll be paying $5.75 if you're querying that. Okay, But if you store the same logs in Apache Parquet format, then the cost would be 0.013. Okay, so you'll be saving so much of cost just for 1 TB of data. And assume if you have a petabyte scale data lake, then you'll be storing so much of cost for your data lake maintenance. Okay, the second important thing is the partition of the data itself. So based on your access pattern, again there is no standard partitioning mechanism that I can suggest for everybody, but based on your access pattern, based on your data, please ensure you have the right partitioning strategy. So sometimes you will be partitioning by days and months and years, sometimes by maybe by countries. So understand how you are going to read the data, and based on that, partition the data accordingly. Okay, so for the demo, I'll be using this bucket. So I have created some folders. I'll be walking you through these folders during the demo. So this is AWS Women in Tech demo bucket. Okay. And the next service that we'll be using for this lab is Kinesis Firehose. So Kinesis Firehose is a fully managed streaming service. So it just ingests the data from streaming source and it can write it to 5 different output. Okay. So it can write directly to S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch service. Recently, they have introduced HTTP endpoint and Splunk. Okay. So these are the 5 services it can directly write to. So there is zero administration. This is fully serverless, no specific configuration with respect to server. All you have to do is give your encryption logic, or if you want to do a transformation, give the Lambda, and you can do, you just give the target location and it will be able to push your data into your target consistently. Okay, so it can read data from all of these sources. So it can read data from agents, streams, CloudWatch log, CloudWatch event, IoT, Kafka, and you can also write custom programs to push data to Firehose. And if you want to do any transformation, in-stream transformation, so before even you write the data to S3, if you want to do a transformation, you can use a Lambda and do the transformation and write it back to these 4 services. And HTTP endpoint is a new one here. Okay, so Amazon S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch Service, Splunk. Okay, so this is a snapshot of the Firehose that I'll be using for the demo today. I'll be showing it as part of the demo quickly. Just give me another 5 minutes. Okay, the third service that we'll be using is Glue. So Glue has actually become very important service in the recent world. So Glue has 2 components. One is the data cataloging component and the ETL component. So data catalog, both are independent, okay? So one can run without the other. It is not they have to run together. So data cataloging is just to read the data in S3 and catalog it. So by cataloging, what we mean is read the metadata and store the metadata for other uses, okay, other usage. So using this catalog, you'll be able to read the S3 data in Athena. You can use EMR and you can also use in Glue. Okay, it's more of a cataloging service. Just discover the schema of the data itself from the S3 files. Okay, so this is one part. And then the second part is ETL service. So you'll be able to write Spark job or Python job to transform your data from one format to other format, or aggregation or consolidation. So whatever you want to do on the actual ETL job itself, you'll be able to write a typical Spark job that you would do in a normal EMR as well. Okay, this is completely serverless, and there are schedulers and triggers available if you want to schedule it as well. Okay, so the Glue itself is a huge topic. So today I'm just covering only 5 to 10% of Glue, and maybe if you need more details, ping me. I'll be able to share more information. Okay, these are the crawlers, and this is one of the job. And the final service that I'll be using is the Athena. So Athena, as I mentioned, is an interactive query service to analyze data using standard SQL. So this is, you just have the file in S3, and if you want to quickly see what is there in S3, just use Glue for that, okay? Just create a crawler and you'll be able to see what the data is available in Athena. Okay, so this is how your Athena looks like. So I've crawled one of the raw data, and this is actually the file. Whatever you see here is the file, but when you query through Athena, you'll be able to see it as a database. Okay, it will be rows and columns. Okay, so I'll show the demo today. Okay, we have Yeah. Can you see my screen? Can somebody let me know if you can see my screen? Yeah, okay, thank you. So as I mentioned during my architecture, right, this is the Kinesis data generator that is going to populate some dummy fake data. Okay, this is internally using faker.js and it will populate some fake data. Okay. And then next is Kinesis Firehose. So this is what I'll be using for the demo, but I'll quickly create and show you how it looks like. Okay. So you're creating a Firehose. So demo Firehose. So this can actually have a direct put because we are going to use KDG. I'm going to use a direct put, or it can also read from another Kinesis data stream. And if you want to have a server-side encryption, you can enable this. For now, I'm not doing it. And then if you want to transform your data, in-stream data into through Lambda, you can use this. You can enable associated Lambda function here. I'm not using it. And if you want to do a record format conversion to Parquet or ORC, you'll be able to do that as well. Okay. And then these are the targets, as I mentioned. So you have S3 as target, Redshift as target, Elasticsearch, endpoint, and third-party device. Sorry, third-party provider, where you have Splunk, MongoDB, Datadog, and New Relic. So these are the direct direct services that you can connect through Firehose. Okay, so I'll just select S3, and all you have to do is provide one of the buckets. Okay, and you can have a prefix. If you want to have a prefix, you can have a prefix. And the important thing in Firehose that you should be aware of is this buffer conditions. Okay, so you can have a buffer size of between 1 to 128 MB. What it means is, right, your Firehose will not deliver data as and when it comes. If you have just one streaming data which is 1 KB, it will not directly put it into S3. Okay, what it will do is it will store the data until the limit that you're providing here. So if you say 5 MB, it will wait until the size becomes 5 MB, or it reaches this timeline. Okay, it is between 60 to 900 seconds, right, which is 1 minute to 15 minutes. So you can specify whether you want to wait for 60 seconds or you want to become 1 MB at the minimum. So at the minimum, it will put the file only after it reaches 1 MB or it has reached the 60 seconds. So that is why Kinesis Firehose is said it is near real time, not a fully real time. Okay, you will not get it immediately. It should achieve and it should be meeting one of these conditions. And then you can have a compression, either gzip, and then you can have an encryption, logging. So all of these are options. And then you have to have your IAM role. This is for security. So after you configure this, you will be able to see your Firehose like this. Okay. And then your S3 bucket. So this is typical S3 bucket. And then, okay. And then this is your glue. So glue, as I said, you have two components, which is a glue crawler. So I've created two crawlers. So this crawler, what it will do is it will crawl your S3 bucket and create a table. Okay, so I've given the table, I mean S3 path and IAM role and a schedule. And once you do this, you'll be able to see your data like this on your Athena. Okay, and then I've got two jobs, ETL jobs. So the first job is going to convert your raw data to Parquet format. Okay, this is a typical PySpark script. Okay, this is actually generated by Glue itself for me. If you're doing a conversion, right, from one format to another format, you'll be able to use the sample job that is provided by Glue itself. So what it does is it reads the data from the raw bucket and it converts it into Parquet format. It is straightforward transformation. And I also have another job which is going to do some transformation. Okay, so this is a typical PySpark job that we can use. Okay, this is any if anybody knows PySpark and if you are working on PySpark, you'll be able to use the same job here and you'll be able to run the job. Okay, so I'll just generate some data. So I'm selecting US West 2 because that is where I've created my Kinesis. Okay, and I'm just going to say push 1000 messages to this Firehose, send data. Okay, and if you monitor your data here, just last 1 hour. So until it reaches 1 MB or 60 seconds, it will wait. Okay, that is the configuration I've provided. So you have to wait for some time to see your data. Okay, I think it started, but let's give it some more time so that you'll start seeing the data here. And then you'll be able to see the data into this raw folder. Okay, so 2020, 9th September 8th. This is what I created yesterday. So you should be able to see some data for 9th September here. And then, yeah, while it runs, I'll just go here and show this crawler. So this crawler will crawl your raw data, and this crawler will crawl your transform data bucket. This is very simple. Just provide your S3 location, and then you'll be able to create a crawler. Okay. So what I'm doing is data store, and I'm going to give a bucket here. Okay. And I'm just giving some buckets now. And then you have to give an IAM role. And then you have to define your schedule and add a database. So because you're going to read it from a database, you have to add the right database there. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'll just look into that again. So then you'll be able to query here, and the other job, I'll just quickly go through the other job as well. Okay. This is your script that we wrote. This is a Spark job. So what we are doing here is we are reading the raw database that we created using Glue Crawler, and then we are filtering the data. We're just selecting Black Friday, and then we are writing the data in Parquet format, and we are just partitioning it, repartitioning it using the repartition command of Spark, and then we are writing it to a different bucket. Okay, so this is a job. So once you have your data, you can run the job from here. Okay, so all you have to do is just click on it and run job. So this will be able to run your job and put it into your respective folders. Let me check why this is not generating data. This is West 2. Okay. Okay, so while this works, maybe I'll have a look at the questions because you're running out of time. Okay. How Athena, okay, this is a question from Nidhi. How Athena process the data? Do we need to write scripts? No, actually Athena is when you crawl, right? As I said, you create a crawler. Okay, so here you just create a crawler. When you create a crawler, you have to provide your S3 bucket as your input. Okay, once you create that input, you will be able to see your databases here. Okay, whatever name you give there, there will be a database, and you'll be able to see your file itself as a table. Okay, so for example, my file has these as a columns. Okay, you'll be able to see these columns, and this is what crawler does. Okay, it captures the metadata of your file. So it says this is your columns, this is the data type. So it identifies that and it creates a metadata. And using Athena, you'll be able to see the data. So this is your raw database, right? Whatever you see here, it is the same database. Okay, So this is your database. The same database, you'll be able to see it in Athena, and then you'll be able to see the data, and then you can just do a normal query, whatever you want to do. So you can do select and where, and you cannot insert the data. It is more of read only, okay? So all you have to do is understand, see what the data is, how it's looking like for your other business cases. So even for transform data, I've written the glue crawler. So this is by department partition data. So you'll be able to see the data. Hope I'm making it clear. Can we use Athena? Okay, this is from Harita. Can we use Athena for visualizations only or for reporting? You can use it for both. Okay, so not for visualization. So QuickSight is for visualization. So if you want to have charts or graphs, you generally use QuickSight. So Athena is more for data validation or reporting. You can also use it for reporting. Okay, there is a question from Meena. What is the meaning of data scanned in both cases? Meena, I'm sorry, I'm not getting a question. If you can explain it a bit, it would help. Okay, what kind of physical repository is the data lake? Priyanka, what kind of physical central repository is the data lake? Again, this question is not very clear to me. So S3, maybe if you can add more details to the question, I'll be able to help you there also, Priyanka. Okay. So S3 is, see, physically we don't know, but physically because we'll not be able to see where it is, and all we provide to S3 is the region, right? If you provision a region, then they will be able to see, we'll be able to create a bucket and place your files there. Okay. So maybe if you can just explain a bit more, I'll be able to answer that questions. For some reason today. Okay, so if you see here, right? Okay, right now I'm seeing the data. So we have got data in S3 for today's date, right? So we have generated so much of data. So since in the Firehose I mentioned it as compressed format, it is coming as compressed format itself. Okay, and then if I use my crawler to crawl this folder, I'll just do a run crawler, then it will crawl the folder and it will add the metadata of the latest files as well. If at all there is a column change or data change, then it will be able to add that as well. And then your Athena will be able to read the latest data as well. Okay, so this is at a very high level how to build your serverless data lake. But if there are further questions, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn, or you can send your questions. Maybe, you know, people whom I have not answered the questions, please ping me on LinkedIn. I'll be able to explain. Okay, maybe I'm not getting the questions right here. Okay. Okay, so we are from community here, AWS user group community. So anytime feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be there to help you with our learnings, and we'll be able to organize sessions as well if required. Thank you.